Welcome.
Thanks.
How can we help you?
One for lunch, please.
Great. Come this way.
Thanks.
Your server will be right with you.
Thanks a lot. There is nothing like a great meal with good friends. I can't think of anything that I enjoy more than just enjoying that delicious food and just the friendship, the laughter. The Bible tells us that that's really a taste of heaven. In fact, the prophet Isaiah gives us a glimpse into that eternal kingdom of God that we will enjoy forever. And he says it's like a feast of fine food and well-aged wines. When I imagine that, it's like I can just taste how good it's going to be. I wonder if that's why Jesus seemed to enjoy dinner parties so much. It seemed like all the time he was hanging out with his friends and enjoying meals and fellowship together, whether it was the wedding at Cana, whether it was at Simon the Pharisee's house. It didn't seem to matter. He just loved that fullness and that richness of joy. In fact, so much so that Jesus gained a reputation as a glutton and a drunkard, even though he wasn't. In fact, one of the most prominent images for heaven in the Bible is not clouds and harps like we think, but it's actually a huge banquet, a feast, and the Messiah is the host of that messianic banquet. When we see that image of the heavenly banquet, we're really getting a glimpse into the destiny that God has in store for us. It was the Apostle John who received that amazing revelation, that glimpse into heaven itself. And when he got that peek of the throne room of God, what he saw was people falling down before the throne of God, worshiping him. And so when we imagine heaven as a banquet, as a feast, the actual feast is worship. Worshiping God. God is the object of that joy in heaven. And so when we think of heaven as a feast, we're really getting a foretaste of that feast when we're worshiping God. Once you get a little taste of that messianic banquet, there's something inside that begins to hunger for more of God, a more complete experience of God in worship. And sometimes I think the reason that we're not enjoying that messianic banquet more fully is that we're using the wrong recipe for worship. And we have to ask the question, what is worship really meant to be? One time Jesus was asked what was the most important thing in life. And he quoted from Deuteronomy when he said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." Now, that great commandment obviously applies to everything in life. In fact, Jesus went on to say the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And those two things really encompass the entire life of a follower of Jesus. But when you think about it, the one thing that we do that is exclusively devoted to expressing our love for God is worship. And so I believe Jesus is giving us a recipe for true worship. That worship is to encompass our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. And when we begin worshiping God and opening ourselves to him in all four of these ways, what happens is we enter more fully into the messianic banquet. Now, those words meant something a little different in biblical times than they do to us today. For instance, in the Bible, when it talks about our heart, it's not talking about our emotions. It's really talking about our choices, our decisions. So to love God with all of our heart is to worship him by our deliberate decisions and commitments. On the other hand, in the Bible, to love God with your mind is not just about storing information or processing information. It's really about that ability to comprehend the deeper truths of God. And so to love God with all of our mind means that we're opening ourselves and wrestling with that truth that would set us free. Now, when it comes to the soul, the Bible isn't talking about some kind of, ghostly substance that floats off to heaven somewhere. Now, in the Bible, the soul is talking about our deepest passions. It's about the emotional experience of God. And so to love God with all of our soul means to open our emotions to him, to be willing to feel something when we're worshiping. To love God with all of our strength is really pointing to our bodies as an instrument of worship. Not just our vocal cords or our ears, but all that we are can become an instrument of praise to him when we lose our inhibitions. You see, when you begin to worship God this way, to receive his love, and to respond by loving him with your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, what happens is you start to experience God more fully. You start to partake more fully of this amazing feast that is offered to us, this foretaste of the feast that is yet to come. In this series, we're going to be exploring what does it mean to worship God, heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I want to encourage you, even challenge you to stretch yourself, to open yourself up to new ways to experience God and to respond by giving yourself back to him. Because when we learn to worship God, heart, soul, mind, and strength, we're changed by that more complete encounter with God. Tell you what, there is nothing better than engaging in that feast of worship more completely.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Have you decided what you'd like?
Yeah, I think I'd like the chicken enchilada.
Would you care for soup or salad this evening?
What's the soup?
We have chicken tortilla or abondigas.
The chicken tortilla sounds great. Yeah.
May I get you anything else to drink?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.